Honda engineered this truck so that if you crash it head-on, the engine drops straight down into the ground instead of into the driver. That decision alone should have made it the safest small truck ever built. Instead, it was banned from most Western markets entirely. That is the Honda Acty, a machine that made the right call, got punished for it, and is now quietly taking over American farms anyway. Here is the part nobody tells you. Every other K-truck manufacturer eventually surrendered. Daihatsu moved the engine forward in 1994. Suzuki followed in 1999. Subaru held out until 2012 before finally giving up. They all moved the engine under the front seats or tucked it behind a small hood. Easier to build, easier to service, easier to explain to a regulator with a clipboard. Honda looked at that consensus and refused. From the first Acty in 1977 to the last one off the line in 2021, the engine sat behind the cab, underneath the bed, in what engineers call a midship layout. 44 years, 4 generations, every competitor defection. Not once did Honda move it. The question is why? And the answer is geometry. Put the engine at the front of a small, light truck and you build in a problem you cannot solve. The nose gets heavy and the tail gets light. Drive it empty and it floats and wanders. Brake hard and the rear steps out. It handles like a shopping cart on ice, and there is nothing you can do about it because the weight is in the wrong place. Now load the bed. Suddenly it settles, balance returns, but the moment you unload it, you are fighting the truck again. For a vehicle that spends half its life empty and half its life hauling, that is not a design compromise. That is a design failure baked into the architecture. Honda's fix was brutal in its simplicity. Move the engine behind the cab, under the cargo floor, and the weight splits roughly 45 to 55% between front and rear. Loaded or empty, the Acty sits on all 4 corners the way it is supposed to. Farmers running switchbacks in the apple orchards of Nagano noticed it immediately. The truck did not fight them, it just worked. In automotive circles, they call this a midship layout. On a Ferrari, it means exotic. On a Porsche 911, it means legacy. On the Honda Acty, it means a 660 cubic centimeter, 3-cylinder engine sitting underneath a cargo bed on a truck that costs less than a used Corolla, handling better loaded than most of its competitors handle empty. That engine deserves its own explanation. It displaces 660 cubic centimeters, has 3 cylinders, and makes 52 horsepower in the version most common in the American import market. On paper, those numbers belong on a riding lawnmower. On a farm path with a half-ton of gravel in the bed, they tell a completely different story, because Honda did not just put the engine in the right place. They connected it to a gearbox with a low range so steep it borders on absurd. Drop into ultra-low and the Acty can walk up a 30% grade, fully loaded, while the tachometer barely moves. This is not power. This is leverage. Mechanical advantage applied with the kind of precision that turns a regulatory handicap into a legitimate working tool. The competitors that switched to front engine layouts gained easier maintenance access and more cabin space. They gave up the balance. Reach under the Acty's bed to service the engine, and it takes longer than on a Hi-J or a Carry. Every Acty owner knows this. Most of them consider it an acceptable trade. The truck that handles right all the time beats the truck that is slightly easier to work on every time. Then the bureaucrats arrived. The Imported Vehicle Safety Compliance Act of 1988 shut the door on any foreign vehicle under 25 years old that had not been certified to American safety and emission standards. The Acty was built for Japan. It was never submitted for EPA certification. It was never crash tested to federal standards. Under the 25-year rule, once a vehicle crosses that age threshold, the federal government steps back and says it is no longer its problem. The states saw an opening. Starting around 2021, motor vehicle administrations began moving. Georgia stopped issuing titles. Rhode Island started revoking registrations that had already been granted. Massachusetts banned K-trucks outright in the summer of 2024, citing a 2011 policy paper from an industry lobbying organization that called mini-trucks unsafe and incompatible with North American roads. The paper did not mention that American automakers had spent decades lobbying Congress and state legislatures to restrict exactly these imports. It did not mention that the federal government had already decided 25-year-old K-trucks were legal to import and drive. It argued safety, which is a harder thing to argue against in public, even when the evidence is thin. Massachusetts reversed its ban 3 months later. Owners had shown up to hearings, mechanics had testified, journalists had started asking why a 1,300-pound truck traveling at 35 miles per hour on a farm road was being pulled from the road while a 6,000-pound pickup truck with a hood the size of a dining table continued to kill thousands of people annually without generating a single emergency policy paper. The Acty survived again. The Acty survived for a long time. When Honda discontinued the Acty in April 2021, the stated reasons were new emissions regulations and mandatory crash mitigation technology, which made the platform too expensive to update. The real reason is the same reason every honest thing eventually gets discontinued. The world the Acty was built for has changed. Japanese farms consolidated. Urban delivery vehicles grew bigger and more connected. The narrow alleys and mountain paths that made the Acty indispensable became less common. What Honda did not anticipate was America. A 1999 Acty with four-wheel drive and low mileage now sells for $13,000 to $18,000 in the American import market. 5 years ago, the same truck was $5,000. The supply ended in 2021, and the demand did not follow. Farmers, landscapers, property owners, and off-grid builders discovered a truck that fits through a gate that stops every American pickup ever made, hauls enough to be genuinely useful, returns 40 miles per gallon, and costs a fraction of anything new at a dealership. They discovered what Japanese agricultural communities had known for decades. The Acty is not a novelty, it is a tool, and a tool with this track record develops its own gravity, the engine under the bed, the weight on all four corners, the gear ratios that make a small motor feel like a bigger one. Honda made those choices in 1977 and defended them for 44 years while every competitor walked away. That stubbornness is the Acty's whole story. An engineering decision so correct that it outlasted the manufacturer's willingness to keep making it. Crossed an ocean it was never meant to cross and found a new life on American land. The government tried to ban it. The market said no. Subscribe if you want more stories about the machines that refuse to lose.